Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So for this video, I will be discussing 10 books that I have read that nobody talks about. And I think previously, maybe like a couple of weeks or even a couple of months ago at this point, I did a video talking about some unknown books on my TBR. So like books that nobody talks about that I haven't read yet. But all of these books I have read, but I hear almost nobody talk about these books. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. And this is in no particular order, but starting off just randomly, this book, I'll just show it first, Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton. So obviously Michael Crichton, very famous author for stuff like Jurassic Park, so he is talked about like the author himself, but this one is one of his kind of newer books that he wrote most of back in the 70s, but he actually didn't publish it, and it got published after his death. So it came out, I don't know, maybe close to 10 years ago at this point, and it's actually one of my favorite Michael Crichton books. Surprising that he didn't want to actually publish this when he was alive, but this one's just really cool, and it does have dinosaur on the cover, which makes you think of Jurassic Park, but it's actually more of a Western. It's actually about people like going in a desert and finding dinosaur bones, and it's just a really good adventure. It's one of his shorter books, and it's just really well paced, really cool characters, and yeah, it's just very good. And I hear no one talk about this. I don't really hear a lot of people say that this is one of their favorite Michael Crichtons, but this is definitely in my top 5, maybe even top 3. So, Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton, great book that nobody really talks about. This next one is a childhood favorite of mine that I really want to go back and reread, but I hear almost nobody talk about this book or the series, and that would be the Pendragon series by D.J. MacHale. The first book, of course, being The Merchant of Death. I read the first 4 or 5 books of these in middle school, really had a great time with them. But then, as they were coming out, I think I've told this story before, but I read a lot in elementary school and middle school, but not so much high school. And I think the end of this series was starting to come out when I was in high school. And at that point, I just didn't really care. But I'm kind of getting the nostalgia bug lately, and I want to go back and check out this book in the series. Hopefully it stands the test of time, and hopefully it's as good as I remember it being. But I don't really hear anybody talk about this series. But I do want to go back and read it. Also, just in general for this whole video, if you've read any of these, definitely comment down below what you thought about them, whether you loved them or hated them or thought they were meh. Let me know if you've read these books. Next up, we have an author that's kind of a one-hit wonder for me. This book I read first, really enjoyed, and then I've tried to read several of her other books, and I've DNF'd all of them. And the author I'm talking about is Helen Oyeyemi, and the book that I'm talking about is Mr. Fox. This was the first book that I tried for her, and I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Has a really out there premise about this guy who keeps trying to write short stories, but in every one of them, the male main character keeps killing off the female character, and he kind of gets annoyed at himself, like, why is this happening? It's a really weird and out there premise, kind of a short story collection in a way. It's just one of the more unique books I've ever read, and I really liked it. And I've heard people talk about some of her other books, but not so much this one, which is ironic because this is the only one that I've really enjoyed by her. So definitely let me know if you've read her books, especially if you've read this one. But I hear almost nobody talk about this book in particular. Next up is an author that pretty much no one except for me talks about. I've convinced a few people to read some of his books, but I've basically read almost all of his books. So you guys have definitely heard me mention this author before for such books as Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie. That's a big hint. But I'm talking about Are You Experienced by Jordan Sonnenblick. Now, this is a book that I think a lot of people would enjoy. It's got a cool concept. It's got a kind of a time travel concept of this kid, all of his books are kind of YA middle grade books. This kid finds a way to time travel because his dad has a Jimi Hendrix guitar, and when he plays it and kind of gets electrocuted, he gets sent back to the 60s, Woodstock, where Jimi Hendrix is going to play, and his dad is there, except his dad is a teenager like himself. So it's just a really fun concept, and I like the time travel element. I like the fish out of water story. It's just a really fun time, and it's got some really great moments. It's one of my favorites by him, and obviously, it's not a book that a lot of people talk about. Besides me, I wish more people would check him out in general, but I do think this is also an underrated gem by Jordan Sonnenblick. This next author, I've heard people talk about some of his more famous ones, but this is actually one of his short story collections, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Not perfect, because a lot of collections aren't perfect, but really well done. And I'm talking about It Haunts the Mind by Nick Roberts. Now, his most famous one is probably The Exorcist House, which is really good. One of my favorite horror books, especially by Nick Roberts. And this one I picked up. Not a lot of people really, I don't know if I've heard anybody talk about this collection. It's stellar. The audiobook is also really good. And it's just got some really wonderful horror stories. Now, not all of them are great, but some of the ones that I remember being really good were the first one, Sally Under the Bed. The Devil's Road was really good. That one's might even be a novella, but basically all these short stories are worth reading. Not all of them worked perfectly for me, but really stellar horror collection that nobody talks about. So if you're a horror fan and you want some short stories, check out this one. Now, you've definitely heard me talk about this book and this author and this series on my channel, but really, I haven't heard anyone talk about this series in particular, which is a shame because I think it's an underrated sci-fi trilogy. And that would, of course, be Sylvain Neuvil's Take Them to the Stars trilogy. Now, you guys know that Themis Files is one of, if not my favorite trilogy of all time, but a lot of people have read and picked that up. This is his other trilogy that he wrote after Themis Files that not a lot of people have read, not a lot of people have even heard of. I don't think it's quite as good as the Themis Files, but it is still very good sci-fi. Basically, all three of the books for me get 4.5 stars. Really solid trilogy and a pretty interesting concept. I don't want to spoil too much, but basically you've got these two characters that aren't quite human, but they're trying to figure out a way to sort of, in the background, get people to make it to the stars, get them to space travel. And you kind of start off in World War II, kind of in the first chapters of this book, and the whole trilogy spans decades and decades. And it's really cool. Also, each chapter is a different song title from kind of the year that it takes place in. So this book in this series has a lot to offer. One of the more underrated trilogies out there. Definitely wish more people would check it out. This next author definitely has some books that have gotten some popularity, especially some of his newer stuff. But this one is one of his lesser known ones that I think fans of kind of weird horror would gravitate towards this. I'm talking about Victor LaValle's The Devil in Silver. And this is all about a guy named Pepper who gets kind of wrongly put into this mental institution, and some weird and wacky things are happening, and the cover is weird and wacky. I don't want to spoil anything. Just jump into this book just knowing that simple premise, and you might be surprised by what you get towards the end. And like I mentioned, Victor LaValle definitely has some more famous stuff like Lone Women, which came out, I think, a year or two ago, and The Changeling, which is my favorite by him. But this one, kind of an underrated gem. I haven't really heard anyone mention this book. It's very weird and out there, kind of one of the weirder prison stories, or not prison, but like someone locked up in a mental institution. It's really good, really out there. Definitely give it a go if you're into that kind of stuff. This next author is definitely very famous for one particular series and character, which is one of my all-time favorite horror series, but this one is one of her standalones, and I really don't hear anyone mention this book, and that would be Caroline Kepnes's Providence. Now, obviously, she's well known for the You series, the Joe Goldberg series, one of my all-time favorite horror characters and horror series. This one, like I mentioned, is one of her standalones, and I don't want to give away too much, but if you know me, I love the show Dexter, and this book definitely has very clear Dexter vibes, and it's one of my favorite standalone horror books for that reason alone. There's a lot more to it than that. You're kind of following three different characters. One of them definitely has that Dexter vibe, and one of them might be kind of the love interest, and then another one you're kind of wondering how it's all going to accumulate, but it's just a very well done horror standalone that a lot of people have not heard of, so I definitely highly recommend anybody check it out who's into horror. Not even if you're just a Caroline Kepnes fan, but just in general, check it out. It's an underrated gem. Next up, we have a thriller book that, while it's not my favorite, and I think the ending is just utter nonsense and utter ridiculous, it's a really fun time. It's not what I was expecting at all going into this book, but I had a really good time with it, and that would be Central Park. I cannot pronounce the name of this author. Maybe Stacy can pronounce it.
Guillaume Musso.
Guillaume Musso.
Guillaume, like Ohm, like home without the H.
What she said. But anyway, this one is kind of a wild premise where two people wake up in Central Park handcuffed together, and they're kind of figuring out why that is. It was a really fun time, but then you get to the ending and you kind of realize what is going on, and it is utter nonsense and it's ridiculous, but in kind of a really fun way. Like you're watching like a movie that's so bad it's good. Like it's so bad that it's funny. This ending is that. It was just ridiculous. And I haven't heard of anybody reading this book, and I want people to check it out because I want someone to talk to about this ending, because it's just one of the most ridiculous endings I've ever read. So if you've read this, definitely comment down below what you thought of it, because it's ridiculous. But yeah, Central Park, check it out.
I'm not going to like it, am I?
Read it. Read it. And the last book that I have to mention in this video,
Come on. Lie down.
For fuck's sake. And the last book I have to mention in this video, I just reread for the third time in my life. And this book just keeps getting better and better. And it's by a very well-known author. In fact, my favorite author of all time. You guys probably know who it is, but what it is. It's Dying of the Light by, of course, George R. R. Martin, my all-time favorite author. Of course, well known for A Song of Ice and Fire, all my all-time favorite series, but this is actually his very first published novel, all the way back in 1977. And yes, he has a bunch of stuff that he wrote before A Song of Ice and Fire. I think it's great. You know, some people have their opinions, but obviously A Song of Ice and Fire is fantastic. But Dying of the Light, the first time I read this book, I will admit, I liked it. I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. And then the second time I read it, after kind of reading a lot of his other sci-fi and getting kind of used to all the terminology with that, I liked it even more, gave it 4 stars. And I just finished my reread of it a few days ago and thoroughly enjoyed my time with it, gave it 5 stars. And it's definitely one that no one really talks about. Everybody and their mama talks about A Song of Ice and Fire, maybe a couple of his short stories here and there, but no one really talks about, you know, his sci-fi stuff, which I think is worth visiting. He became my favorite author because of stuff like this. For a long time, you guys know I love Stephen King. He was my favorite author until I started to check out all of George's other stuff, like Dying of the Light. So I wish more people would go and check this out. If you've read Dying of the Light, even if you did not like it, please let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd love to chat with you about it. But yeah, Dying of the Light, fantastic debut novel from George. All right, so those are 10 books that I have read that nobody really talks about. Now, not literally nobody. I'm sure some people in corners, pockets of BookTube have mentioned these books. But in general, I don't really see a lot of people talking about these books. And some of these books I really love. Some of these books I think are good or okay, but a lot of these books are some of my favorites. So definitely let me know if you've read any of these books or if you've heard any other booktubers mention these books. I'd love to chat with you about it, and I'd love to go watch videos of people chatting about these books. So definitely comment that down below, and we'll chat about it. And of course, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Stay subscribed for more content. I try to post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I've also got the Book of Summer Discord, where we've always got tons of buddy reads and read-alongs happening all the damn time. I got my Patreon link down below if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month, and my Amazon wishlist if you'd like to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.